So here, my first like research that I got here is from like one of the articles that really announced the deal between LA Lakers and Bibigo. Though their like financial details are like closed, it is approximately like $100 million for 5 years. I thought this could give like general picture of the like whole partnership deal between the team and the brand, and also they have this thing comparison of the revenue difference that the LA Lakers will be receiving compared to like their jersey patch deal with which was their previous one,
Right.
current one with the BBGO. So I thought that was kind of significant to consider. And the next one is from the NBA website. It was the like official announcement from the NBA of the deal between LA Lakers and the brand, and it gives like kind of good introduction, like summary of what BBGO is to the NBA fans, and also it like vividly shows the location where the patch will be attached and for the LA Lakers jersey. So I think that kind of is important since we are looking at where the brand logo will be exposed to fans during the games. And also, it includes a video of players wearing a jersey with the logo patched, which will be probably one of the very first exposures that the Bibigo officially had from the league, NBA. And it is essential to be included because it is kind of one way to see how marketing is done, and it is important to do when marketing analytics. And the other one is the data sources, and it identifies the significant scale of the deal compared to previous ones in both NBA and the LA Lakers. It's kind of huge deal that they have made the last year. So it is essential to like figure out if the brand had a good return investment, considering it's like huge investment. And the other one is from Sports Business Journal's Atlas. So this is data specifically on the brand. So it shows like what brand is receiving in return of this huge investment, specifically for signage. So court baseline, jersey front, LED court size. So these are like all things that they're receiving in return. So how they are like exposing the brand themselves is kind of important when doing marketing research and analysis. So I thought this would be necessary to include. And so this is the data that I got from the SBR, and one of them is NBA fan market summary. It shows like demographics, age, and like of NBA fans. And throughout this, I will be able to compare the target audience of Bibigo and the fan demographics or age of the NBA. So how those kind of work together, and if they are like working in the positive ways or is it kind of negative ways. And the second one is NBA's most valuable teams. Apparently, LA Lakers is ranked on the third based on 2021 data that has been most recently disclosed, and it will be measure how influential this sponsorship was. And yeah,
I think this is a very, very good presentation.
So do I.
Very thorough.
thank you.
So do I, Brian. Nice job. Um, can I jump in?
Yeah,
Brian, let's go back a couple slides if we could. Keep going. Keep going. One more back. Actually, no, I'll go back to two forward. I'm sorry. So I like what you're doing. BBGO is Korean, is the Korean food, right?
yeah.
Like, that's what I thought. So I think there's so many things you could do here. I think it's so important to understand, number one, the value of profiles. Now, I'm not, I know sometimes that word is bad, but I think number one, go to the next slide, please, Brian. If you go, you build some profiles. So, who are the Los Angeles Laker fans versus the average NBA fan? And I would really look at building that profile. And one of the things you're going to end up doing, Brian, maybe is to create a Venn diagram. Because what you're going to try to do is you're going to try to find the intersection between NBA fans in general, Los Angeles Laker fans specifically, and then BBGO targeted consumers. So, it's really all about, number one, build a profile of the NBA fans, young or old, affluent, not as affluent, college educated, not college educated, and put in as many different demographic characteristics, really as you can find. And I'll tell you why. And then build that same profile of the Los Angeles Laker fans. So you now have the ability to be able to analyze the differences between Laker fans. My guess is they're probably more affluent. My guess is they may be better educated. My guess is, they probably have, I don't even know. Well, we don't really measure kids in the home on SBRnet or on sports market analytics, but I would first build a profile of the NBA fan, build a profile of the New York, of the Laker fans. Because I think it's always important to profile and benchmark. Those are two things I always love. Profile, benchmark it against the average, benchmark it against the mean, the median. Find yourself something to profile it and benchmark it. And then match it up to the same profile of the BBGO target market and build a Venn diagram. Professor Hall, do you get into that kind of thing?
We don't, I guess we will cover it next week in data visualization.
Well, okay. Because this is perfect for for doing some really interesting things. Because what you want to find, Brian, you want to find the intersections.
Yeah.
See, the one things that don't, I don't measure this data, and I'm sure there are a lot of people, sponsor agencies, and they care whether the data goes on the right side of a jersey, left side, whether it goes on the front shoulder, back shoulder. There's a lot of people that go to the next slide also, if you could, Brian. Next one. You're going. I think you're going. Next one. Okay, this is good. So again, one of the things I thought it talked about was, this idea of profiling and then finding the intersections, which you talk about in number 1. I do, however, think number 2 is half right. Number 1 is that the value of the Lakers as a team, I don't feel play into this. However, what I do feel is your second point, is that by using the sponsorship influence index does play into it. Because if you're a sponsor, look, at the end of the day, you want business, but do you want business at any cost?
No.
What do you think, Brian? You don't. You want it to be efficient. You want it to be, you want it to, the return on investment has to be within your guidelines or parameters. So I love the idea of profile and benchmark. I love the idea of using the sponsorship influence index that we have in sports market analytics. So you can look at, and then again, you profile and benchmark, Brian.
Yeah.
Profile look at all the other NBA teams. Profile, then profile the Lakers, and then find those same intersections with BBGO.
So I just wanted to ask, if you were going to describe this in 1 or 2 sentences on your resume, how would you describe the project in 2 sentences?
Probably considering this is very first trial from South Korea's major company, how well they have started off and how efficiently and effectively they are doing this in terms of, and if they are meeting their goals.
So I understand what the problem you're trying to solve or the issue you're analyzing, but you might want to describe it a little bit more general, was this a good value for BBGO? NBA sponsorship case study. Was this a good value for BBO? And then that's a short and simple problem you're trying to solve. and then that's how you kind of describe your research, right? So, yeah, that's my only comment. But
I mean, when you get out of school, one of you might be working for one of the big sponsorship agencies, whether it's Wasserman, Excel Sports Marketing, there's a whole bunch of them. And they might ask you, to, provide, use that NYU education and do some analysis for this particular package, and are the Lakers right for this package, or are we better off with the New York Knicks or something like that? So what you've put together, Brian, is a real life example of the kinds of, just like you said, a case study of, kind of a niche brand, a niche product, and how do they use mainstream sports, the NBA, and then how do I maximize their return on investment?
okay, let's move on. That was an excellent presentation, and Neil,
Nice job, Brian.
feedback. I think it's really, really helpful to the class to hear you talk. Cassius, you're up next.
Okay. Let me see.
I hear you. Great. Where are you, Cassius? Just out of are you in class or
I'm on the Zoom.
Got it. Where are you location wise?
I'm in Switzerland.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm back home.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love this.
So I actually wanted to research the power of social media from working at a sports agency last semester. I was always super curious when we'd ask brands if they'd like to sponsor an athlete. They immediately ask for the athletes' Instagram followers and demographics of who follow them. So with my project, I want to touch upon how social media is actually impacting player revenue, just besides basic salary that clubs pay.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I've always seen is a list that's compiled of all the athletes and how much they charge for an Instagram post. And Cristiano Ronaldo's is top of that list. But also there are names in there such as David Beckham, who hasn't played soccer in over 10 years, who still is able to charge close to $1 million for a post. And I was just curious to see why brands are paying so much money to have access to these athletes' Instagram followers and Twitter followers as well.
Yes.
Now, during COVID, I really noticed that clubs were taking more of an interest into social media because there wasn't so much content going around and games weren't being played. And I picked out one article which really talks about how some clubs made better use of it and than other leagues as well. Lastly, Cristiano Ronaldo's arrival, and he has over 400 million Instagram followers.
Yep.
His arrival created 145% commercial revenue during COVID when he moved to Juventus, which just shows the power of social media. And not only does it help Cristiano Ronaldo, but it also helps generate revenue for the club and then potentially the league. And now this graph shows how the money in the Premier League has constantly increased. And this is, I believe, down to the fact that they can attract more and more players with greater social media backing and following. And with these players entering the Premier League, that brings new audiences and new eyes. So this, I believe that the rise of the TV income is going to continue going on. Finally, there's another demographic which shows how in the NBA that people with higher Twitter followers usually have a higher average salary. Now that's probably largely down to the fact that better players usually just have in general more fans. But I was intrigued to see how the gap between players with 1 to 5 million followers to over 5 million, the salary gap wasn't actually that big, even though the jump in followers was quite huge. So there is a gap for players to exploit their social media backing and in order to increase their salaries that they would usually get. And finally, I used SBR to show an index of how a reason why brands are so keen to put out advertisements through sport, and that's because of the great reception that they get. Ignoring the last column, which is year 2020, which was hit by COVID.
Yes.
You can see that in most of these sections, they either go from nothing to 230 or 360. They usually increase it. Look, Facebook goes up. So brands do get a high percentage of a positive outcome when sponsoring through sport. And so that's why I wanted to touch upon the impact of social media and how it impacts player revenue, but also trickles down to the league as well.
I love this. Are you more?
I'm done. Yeah, so I'm done. Yeah.
Okay, first I want to say I love this. I really do. I think this is a terrific, terrific, terrific subject. The whole subject of value, player value, marketing value, advertising value, just anything with that word value in it. I think is super important. And I also think this is going to be a great example of using a variety of different data sources. Hey, Cassius, let me ask you a question. You've had a post from Ronaldo was worth $1.2 million. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think it's worth it?
I mean, you get to instantly touch upon 400 million Instagram followers. Granted, not all of them are probably your target audience.
Do you?
The fact you have such a big audience, I mean.
Okay. Well, do you really get to 400 million social media followers? Because I'm going to dispute that, and not to be a jerk, by the way.
No, but you're probably right. There's probably a good proportion who aren't active or don't see the post. I'm working on another type of a measurement, and it's a little bit different, but there's a big difference, Cassius, between just having a herd of followers, and having engaged followers. Yeah.
And you've probably heard people use the word engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't hear you use the word engagement, because I think somewhere in there, I think you've got to plug in an engagement measure. And there's a number of sites, by the way, that lets you measure social media engagement. The problem is, unless you subscribe to it, you got to do them one at a time. So it takes a little bit of time. But there's a site out there called socialtracker.io.
Okay.
And they have a free service, and you could plug in, or you could also, where else you could go is you could go to, I think Hook It. Will have this, but there's a couple different places. So I think the first thing you need, first of all, I love the topic. Okay. And I would say, my first question would be, is Ronaldo worth it?
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. About 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, when we first bought SBRnet, I did a project for somebody. Lionel Messi, as you know, I guess who's he playing for? Is he still playing for Barcelona?
He's in Paris right now. He was actually second on that list.
Okay. So Lionel Messi was, traded, or whatever expression they use in the Champions League, from Barcelona to Paris I forgot the name of the team. And somebody came to me and said, from a marketing standpoint, is Lionel Messi worth it? Is he worth it from an advertising standpoint? Was he worth it based on, the amount of money that they're going to pay him for the number of wins and all that? The interesting thing was, he was worth it. But I think what you've got to be able to do, Cassius, is number one, I think you've got to start off by, trying to build some type of engagement value, or some type of engagement benchmark. And you could take, Ronaldo, you could take Messi, you could take, God, I don't know my footballers as well as I used to. Who are some of the big name footballers, Cassius?
Like Gareth Bale,
right? So
Neymar, etc.
Neymar, yeah, right. And there's a guy from Holland. I forgot one of the Dutch guys, but also they're not. They don't do very well on social media. But my point is that look at all of the top players, and look at the number of total Instagram or total social media followers. So it's Instagram plus Twitter plus TikTok. Don't worry about Facebook. Don't worry about it. It's just all about the Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok.
Okay.
And add them all up. And then go to Social Tracker IO, or one of the social tracking sites, and determine what their engagement level is.
Okay.
Because I have to tell you, I would rather buy 10 really engaged fans than, let's say, 30% of 20 engaged fans. because engagement is really where it's at, Cassius. Engagement is really where it's at. So, the first question you have to ask is he worth it? And you've got to have some way to be able to benchmark it. So
that's one way you could think about that is to use marketing analytics, right? If I guess Ronaldo is just posting a photograph with him using some sort of product, how do you actually measure whether somebody bought that product based on that photo? That's very difficult to measure.
Right.
But an alternative could be anybody could advertise on the Instagram feed of a celebrity, right? Or an athlete.
Essentially, yes.
So you could use analytics through Facebook or through Google searches or whatever to actually see the click-through rate of an ad on that person's feed, right?
Yes.
Which that person didn't consent to, right? It's Facebook charging for that ad, right? So you might want to say, like, at the end of the day, if all you have is engagement and you can't really quantify whether that ad's worth it or not, maybe you suggest, why don't we just advertise directly through Facebook? Why don't, or TikTok, right? And then we can quantify whether it's worth it or not.
I think that's why a lot of brands tell athletes to, when they post, is to say, use my promo code. So then I think it enables brands to track, okay, if all these people have bought it and used his code, they must have seen it on his Instagram.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly right. The next point I think I want to make, Cassius, by the way, I know I said it about 12 times. I love this topic.
Thank you.
I do. I really do. I want to tell you to be careful when you use indices because this becomes, in some cases, the half truth and a big lie, if you know what I mean. Because indices without anything to show volume or tonnage to work against can be a little deceiving. And I know because I just did something today with somebody where they indexed incredibly high, but I had to put a giant disclaimer on it to say, look, the base is really low. You've got to be very careful. You've got to list what the base is that you're working from. It's what I like to call it's tonnage, versus, the possibility, the trend, the opportunity. And, so you've got to make sure, look, somebody can have a really high index, but just have like low number of followers. So, an advertiser would have to weigh, the high index or the high number of followers. Look, at the end of the day, you got to go fishing where the fish are. Right?
Yeah.
And index will tell you where you're more likely to find those fish, but you still have to know where there's a lot of fish. And what I mean? So balance the two. Don't ever just show an index without some sort of volume. I like to call it an anchor. Lock it down.
All right. Thank you very much.
One more thing.
Okay.
Because of COVID has presented a lot of problems when you look at the data and all of a sudden it swings one way or the other. Use rolling averages. So do a rolling three. Always do like a rolling three. So that way it'll hide that black swan event of the pandemic. All right, Brian. Thank you. Great job, Cassius.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next up, good job. Next up, Chloe.
I'm loving this.
Can you hear me?
My wife's going to be mad, but that's okay. It's Valentine's. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Who's here? Who's up?
I strategically left the flowers at home before.
I've been married almost 20 years. I got her a card. She's laughing back there. My wife's sitting having her dinner. Hi, who's talking?
Hi. I'm like in the front.
Hi.
It's Chloe.
Hi, Chloe. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I am good. I'm digging this already. I see you use Google. No problem. I think it's great. I'm a Microsoft guy because I'm a dinosaur. But
okay, so I was thinking about like looking at the Arizona Coyotes relocating to Houston
Love
as
it.
like my presentation. And I kind of split it up looking at data articles on which kind of explain why I think the Coyotes should relocate generally, and then later, and then looking at data and stuff that explains why I think they should go to Houston. So, well, one of the first articles I found was kind of talking about how, well, this is recent where they got kicked out of their arena, so now they have to play at ASU's ice hockey arena, which is only like 5,000 people seat capacity, which is going to be the smallest arena in NHL history.
By a long shot.
And just how that just is, it's kind of just, they're going to be losing a lot of money on this. The NHL Coyotes in general, their fans, there's going to be so little fans being able to go. It's just going to make it, I feel like, an undesirable place to want to play as a player and just to go as a fan as well. And they're also the lowest, the lowest value team in the NHL. And this is data I found off SBR, and they have been for a while.
Yep.
And
Yeah, this data comes from Forbes.
yeah, and then
but it's on our site.
Also, just I found this other article which is just kind of talking about how they generally have not been a good team. They're in Glendale, Arizona, which is
Suburb.
Yeah, 25 miles away from Scottsdale. So
Yep.
it's just kind of, they're in an area where people, like, how much are people really willing to drive all the way out there for a Coyotes game, especially in Arizona?
They were hoping that when they built the Arizona Cardinals stadium, that the neighborhoods would develop around it, and it really never materialized.
Mhm. And then just looking at this data that the Coyotes have, this was the 2019-2020 season, which I guess was the last kind of most normal season before COVID, that they had a $17 million operating losses. So they just aren't generating much revenue, and just aren't a very good team, not very popular. They don't have that many great players on the team.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is why I think they should relocate, and which has kind of been like a floating issue within the NHL. And I think they should go to Houston. And,
Why?
Well, first, it's the fourth largest city in the U.S. by population, and they already have it's a very established sports city. They have like all the major sports basically, and I was looking at this data as well that the Rockets, Texans, Astros they're valued very highly, and they're all like within like the billions, and the Coyotes were like 400 million, and I think, I guess I would have to look at more data, kind of comparing maybe like the different incomes of Arizona versus, or the part where the Coyotes play in, and Houston, kind of looking at how much, like how willing people are going to be to spend on sports in Houston versus Arizona.
Can I ask you a question, Chloe?
Yes.
I'm loving this, by the way. I'm loving all of these. This Professor Brian, I don't know what they call you, but your group is doing, this is amazing work.
I am also very surprised as well. I mean, it's very, very good work.
Oh, tremendous work. This is impressive. But Chloe, what am I looking at here? It's not labeled very well.
Yeah, I realized that I should have put the label of the actual data, but they're the valuations of the different teams.
By year, right?
Over by year. Right?
Yes. Like the ones that's all the way on the far right are the most recent.
Okay.
Yes, and then also just like Texas already has a hockey team, the Stars, so I think also just,
Dallas Stars.
Yeah, bringing them there can just kind of create more value, and like having an instant like in-state rivalry, and rivalry games are always very like more people want to go to those. So I just think there's a lot of opportunity for them to grow and have a successful popular team in Houston.
So are you from Arizona or Houston?
No.
That's interesting.
You like hockey?
Yes.
Well, again, I think a great job, Chloe. one thing I will say, and I will say this to the entire class, guys, you have to label your charts and graphs better, and you need to also explain what people are looking at. Because I always tell people, I even tell people that work for me, or even I tell myself that if this slide were to somehow fall out of the deck onto the floor and somebody picked it up or my boss picked it up, would he be able to understand the story or what I'm trying to tell on this? The answer is right now, no. But you really should work on your labeling and your kind of, what am I looking at? And then you can talk about, what the data shows. But what am I looking at? And what are the measures? Is it dollars? Is it, I don't know what that is. So that's all.
Neil, I could tell this is a pet peeve of yours.
It is.
With the indexing and now the
It
dollars
is.
and the columns. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
You are definitely right. I did not notice that because it was being presented, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I usually, yeah. What I like to do, and just this is just a me thing, but I'd like to find just anywhere to put like a little, even if it's a small text box with like a little of italic, here's what I'm looking at. And, that way it also helps me when I'm presenting to make sure that I know this, for the story itself. So it's just, yeah, it is a pet peeve. Well, you're right.
I know not to send you my slides. That's for sure.
I'll send you some of mine and you'll see what I've done, over the years and how I've done this explanation thing. And I've changed my whole MO in the way I do my presenting. A lot less data, more, different, more explanation. It's just a whole thing. Couple things, Chloe.
Yes.
Still there?
Yes.
Okay. I'll tell you where, look, first of all, there's so much data that you're going to be able to work with. It's like an avalanche. I would go, though, to census.gov.
Uh-huh.
And I would try to create demographic profiles of Houston, Dallas, and then Phoenix.
Okay.
Problem is you're not going to be able to get Glendale, So I would try to create 3 profiles initially, and you can get that data at census.gov. You might be able to get it at Statista. I'm not sure about that, but I know you can get it at census.gov and it's free. So I would, number one, go in and build a little bit of a profile. And you may not get as much data as you want, but you will get, you'll be able to get age information. You'll be able to get income information. You'll be able to get education information. It'll probably give you children in the household, which, by the way, is not a bad number to throw into this mix. And I would look at Houston, Dallas, and Phoenix. Remember, I love to benchmark. So let's benchmark against the 3, basically the 3 cities that we talked about here. Right?
Yes.
Then what I would do is I would start to go into the sports market analytics data, and I would start to look at the fans. And again, you're looking, Chloe, at the intersections. And you want to also look, the Phoenix Coyotes have been around a few years. You can start to see some trends there, and you showed some before. So look at some trends. Are the fans getting older? Are they getting younger? Because let's just say hypothetically, Houston's getting younger. And I think it is, by the way. And you show that the Phoenix Coyotes fans are starting to get a little younger, or their demographics are tending to skew a little younger. Well, guess what? That might be a really good story to say, you know what? Houston is starting to skew younger. There's all and all that. Look, you could also grab some participation data. The problem is you can't get it at the state level. You can get it at the region level. The reason why I say that is I have this thing, and I don't know what to call it, but I don't know if the chicken came first or the egg came first. And let me explain what I mean. Are people sports fans before they decide to play a sport and then become a fan of that sport, as an adult. So do you watch it? Do you play it and then become a fan of it? Or do you play it first? So did you play hockey? Did you play football first? And then from there, you became a fan of, let's say, I don't know what the order is on this thing.
Neil, we have a comment from a student.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I am actually from Houston, and something that I thought of while you were doing your presentation is you might potentially be able to find numbers related to the AHL team that was in Houston until 2013.
Good.
Because from what I remember, the Arrows were like consistently like top 5 in tickets sold. And it was like, 7,000 to 8,000, which you're comparing to a 5,000 seat stadium, and you already have a minor league hockey team that would outsell that playing at the Toyota Center. And I don't know what other kind of data you might be able to find just based off that, but yeah.
Chloe, that attendance situation, by the way, has a great input on that. But Chloe,
Yeah.
the fact that they're playing in a 5,000 seat stadium is really immaterial. They're only in that situation because somebody put them there. That is not their desire to play in a 5,000 seat arena.
Yeah.
So that to me is a real outlier. But I think what's the gentleman who just spoke up?
David.
So what David said, though, I think is really a good idea. In fact, I would even take it one step further, David. I would start even looking at the college teams around Houston. Baylor, isn't that around Houston?
That's about 5 hours away.
Okay, so that's bad. SMU, Houston?
That's Dallas.
Dude, I am really striking out here.
University of Houston and Rice.
Okay. So, what I would do, Chloe, is I would probably just start to try to find as many kind of parallels and then try to, again, find the intersections.
Okay.
Because that's what this is going to be about. If I ask Chloe, Alexis, Kim to be on the committee from Houston, you got a job. You're working for the Houston Conventioner and Visitors Bureau. We are going to make a presentation to a group of investors, includes the NHL, with our plan to bring the Phoenix Coyotes to Houston. This is, by the way, an incredible case study. An incredible case study. So,
And Neil, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about this is an opportunity in this class to craft your own research.
Yes.
Your own, so that you can say, I took a semester doing research and have this on your resume, right? So this is a very targeted, great example, like you said.
Look, everything I've heard today is very publishable, as you're and all that. But this one so far, in my opinion, kind of rises one little step above all the others in like a publishable. I mean, this could be a publishable paper, depending on how you approach it.
So long as you label your column.
Yes, I want to see good labeling. Yeah, you got me right on that one. Totally busted me.
Okay, Neil. Well, I think we're gonna take a break here, and thank you for joining us today. I think it was extremely helpful to hear your insights, so that it kind of formulates everybody's final project, I think, in a different light after hearing the comments.
I love this. I could do this. My wife hates listening to it, I'm sure, but I could do this all on. I mean, this to me is really where the rubber meets the road. For lack of a better metaphor, because this is where you're taking data and putting it into an actual application. Data is wonderful, but when it tells a story, it's beautiful. It's magnificent. It's data built that. That's the way I feel about this thing. When I see, when I'm going to read Chloe's presentation, or I'm going to read Cassius's presentation, and all that, I'm going to read your presentations and all that. And you know what I'm going to say? Data built that. And it's an amazing thing. Thank you very much, Professor Hall.
Thank you for joining us, Neil.
Have a great night, everybody. I want a recording. Can I get a recording of this?
Of course, yes.
All right, this is going on the website.
Okay. sounds good.
Thanks, everyone. You'll have a great night and happy Valentine's Day.
Okay, you too.
Bye.